Allison Bach, who's here to tell you all about AP Calculus Bootcamp, the program that changed her life and can change yours too. Allison, do you mind telling us a little bit about this new program?
Well, first, I just want to thank you for having me. I mean, I'm so excited. Like, hi, Mom! Okay, well, thank you, America, first of all, for watching. And basically, my life story is amazing. You know, before AP Calculus Bootcamp, I was a lost soul. My life was meaningless. In a sense, I was an indeterminate form, you know? I mean, in calculus terms, that means the function of x over g of x, or both 0 to x of a, and basically, I was producing 0 over 0. I mean, I was helpless. And before, I mean, I don't even know what I could do before AP Calculus Bootcamp, because I was nearly dying. I almost had to go to the L hospital. But finally, at AP Calculus Bootcamp, I found L'Hopital. Now, L'Hopital essentially saved me and brought me back to AP Calculus life. Yeah.
That's really inspiring. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after we watch her confessional.
Now, before I met L'Hopital, I was lost. Like I said, I was an indeterminate form. Basically, 0 over 0 in the first case. Now, L'Hopital has allowed me to use my skills in derivatives for good. That means I was able to take derivatives and help my problems as well. Taking derivatives and getting me out of indeterminate form. Now, the first rule L'Hopital told me was that suppose that f of a and g of a are both equal to 0, and that f prime of a and f prime of g of a exist, and also that g of a does not equal to 0. Then the limit as x approaches a for f of x over g of x is equal to the derivative of f of x over the derivative of g of x. Amazing. It was like a life-changing experience, that first rule. Incredible. Now I can easily recognize the meaningless things in my life, aka the indeterminate forms, which allow me to use L'Hopital's rules and solve my problems.
Now that was truly inspiring. Now, I've been told that's not the only obstacle that Allison was able to overcome through AP Calculus Bootcamp. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, my issues with L'Hopital weren't my only issues. You know, I have a lot. Basically, after my experience with L'Hopital, I began trying to integrate my life. You know, become a better citizen, be more integrated with society. However, I had no limits. And therefore, because I had no limits, they were infinite. And thus came my second issue, improper integrals.
Great. Now let's go to her confessional and see how she overcame this new problem.
The integrals with infinite limits of integration are improper integrals. Now, this was a sad part of my life, but here are 3 tips that basically help me solve improper integrals. First, if f of x is continuous from a to infinity, then this means that the integral from a to infinity of f of x is equal to the limit as b approaches infinity of the integral from a to b of f of x. Second rule, if f of x is continuous from negative infinity to b, then the integral from negative infinity to b of f of x equals the limit as a approaches negative infinity from the integral of a to b of f of x. Finally, the third rule, if f of x is continuous on negative infinity to infinity, then the integral from negative infinity to infinity of f of x is equal to the integral from negative infinity to infinity of f of x, which is equal to the integral from negative infinity to c plus the integral from c to infinity, where c is a real number. And when I'm really lost, and when I can't evaluate an improper integral directly, I always first try to determine whether I am converging or diverging. And finally, if I need a little more guidance with improper integrals, I always make sure I do my 2 tests, and that's what I learned at AP Calculus Bootcamp. Direct and limit comparison tests are gold. All right, good luck, guys. AP Calculus Bootcamp. Woo!
Wow, that was awesome. I'm so glad you learned to integrate your life and deal with your infinite limits. That's really great.
Oh, me too. I mean, before that, I was not only sick with, before L'Hopital save me, but I couldn't even integrate my own life. And I hate to admit it, but I do have another problem.
Really? A third one? Well, we'll have to find out what it is in her next confessional.
Basically, before the AP Calculus Boot Camp, I was a bit shallow. You know, I only saw people from their appearances, and I didn't really see them for each part of themselves. You know, people have different layers. That is, until I learned about partial fractions. Personally, I find these quite tough, especially if you aren't good with fractions in the first place. They involve splitting up fractions into two or more fractions with only one factor in the denominator. Now, it really requires a good eye, and you really learn how to appreciate everyone for their, you know, every part of themselves and not just the surface. Any rational function can be written as a sum of basic fractions, called partial fractions, using the method of partial fractions. So we can integrate the rational function by integrating the sum of the partial fractions instead. Now, at AP Calculus Bootcamp, thankfully, I learned not only one, but two methods of doing this. First is substitution of strategic values. So you're using strategic values to figure out the partial fractions and what goes on top of the denominator and whatnot. And then the second is solving with coefficients. Personally, I like the second one, but it's really up to you. Figure it out in your class. All right, that's it for now.
Great. Partial fractions are really hard to overcome. I'm so glad you learned to see people for more than who they just appear to be. That's really, really inspiring for all our viewers.
Yeah, like, I don't even feel shallow at all. Like, I seriously, like, love everyone now because of AP Calculus Bootcamp.
See? This is what it can do for you. And this is what it can do for you. So we're going to have to end the show today. But thank you all for listening, and hope to see you next week. Bye!
Bye! Go to AP Calculus Bootcamp!
Calculus Bootcamp!